The music pulsed through the Seattle rooftop, a chaotic symphony of bass and laughter. But for Ezra Caldwell, the world shrank to the cold metal biting into his wrist. Handcuffed to a stranger, his heart raced not from the party's electric vibe, but from the stranger's warm, steady gaze locking onto his. In that fleeting moment, under the glow of string lights, Ezra realized his night was about to spiral into something unforgettable. Ezra, 24, a graphic designer with a penchant for vintage tees and a mop of curly brown hair, hadn't planned on being the center of attention at this crowded rooftop bash. He'd come to the party thrown by his co-worker Mia in a swanky Belltown loft, hoping to unwind after a grueling week of deadlines. The Space Needle glittered in the distance, and the air smelled of pine and city rain. But now, here he was, tethered to a guy he'd never met, their wrists bound by a pair of novelty handcuffs from a party game gone wrong. The stranger, Kai Nakamura, 25, a barista and aspiring musician with sharp cheekbones and jet black hair, looked equally stunned. So, how do we explain this to everyone staring at us? Kai's voice was low, laced with a nervous chuckle that made Ezra's stomach flip. The crowd around them was already buzzing, phones snapping photos, whispers spreading like wildfire. Are they a couple? They're totally a couple. It had started innocently enough. Mia, ever the chaotic host, had proposed a trust-building game involving handcuffs and blindfolds, meant to break the ice among her eclectic mix of guest artists, tech bros, and musicians from Seattle's vibrant scene. Ezra and Kai, paired randomly, were supposed to unlock themselves in under a minute. But the key was missing, and Mia, 3 cocktails deep, was nowhere to be found. Now, the cuffs were more than a party gimmick. They were a public spectacle. Ezra tugged at the cuffs, his hazel eyes darting to Kai. This is ridiculous. I don't even know your name. And now we're, what? The night's main attraction. He gestured to the crowd, where a group of Mia's friends was already hashtagging handcuff heartthrobs on their socials. I'm Kai, the other man said, offering a shy smile that softened his sharp features. And yeah, I didn't sign up for this either. But, he hesitated, his brown eyes flickering with something Ezra couldn't quite read. You're kinda stuck with me now. The words hit harder than they should have. Ezra wasn't out, not really. He'd always danced around the edges of his identity, keeping his feelings locked away in late-night sketches and half-written journal entries. Growing up in a small Oregon town, he'd learned to keep his head down, to avoid the whispers and sideways glances. Seattle was supposed to be his fresh start, but being handcuffed to a guy who was undeniably attractive, with half the party assuming they were a couple, was pushing him into uncharted territory. Kai, on the other hand, seemed more at ease, though his flushed cheeks betrayed a hint of nerves. He leaned closer, his voice barely audible over the music. Look, we can either hide in a corner and wait for Mia to sober up, or we can own this. What do you say, Ezra? Ezra blinked, surprised Kai had caught his name during the game's chaotic setup. The way Kai said it, soft and deliberate, sent a shiver down his spine. He glanced at their linked wrists, then at the crowd, their phones still flashing. Own it. The idea was terrifying and thrilling. Okay, Ezra said, his voice steadier than he felt. Let's give them something to talk about. They moved through the party, an awkward duo at first, navigating drink tables and dance circles with their hands tethered. But as the night wore on, something shifted. Kai's easy humor-cracking jokes about their forced marriage and Ezra's dry wit started to sink. They played along with the crowd's assumptions, posing for a photo with exaggerated hard eyes, laughing when someone shouted, "You guys are so cute together." The hashtags multiplied, BL couple goals, handcuff hotties. By midnight, they'd found a quieter corner of the rooftop, leaning against a railing overlooking the Puget Sound. The city lights reflected on the water, and the cool September air carried a hint of salt. Ezra's nerves had settled, replaced by a warmth he couldn't explain. Kai's presence felt right, like they'd known each other longer than a few hours. "So," Kai said, twirling the cuffs between them, "you're a designer." "Huh. What's that like?" Ezra shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "It's drawing stuff. Logos, posters, sometimes album art. I like telling stories through visuals." He paused, glancing at Kai. "What about you? You look like you belong on a stage." Kai laughed, a rich sound that made Ezra's chest tighten. "I play guitar, write songs. Nothing big yet, just open mics around Capitol Hill. But I'm working on it." His eyes softened. "Maybe you could design my first album cover." Ezra grinned, the idea sparking something in him. "Only if your music doesn't suck." They talked for hours, the party fading into background noise. Ezra learned Kai had grown up in Tacoma, raised by a single mom who ran a diner. Kai was openly bi, unapologetic but not loud about it, and his confidence made Ezra feel both exposed and curious. Kai learned Ezra was a small-town kid still figuring himself out, his sketches a window into a heart he rarely shared. As dawn crept over the skyline, Mia finally reappeared, key in hand, giggling apologies. "You two are stealing my party," she slurred, fumbling to unlock the cuffs. The metal clicked open, and Ezra's wrist felt oddly light. He glanced at Kai, expecting relief, but Kai's expression mirrored his own, a flicker of disappointment. "Thanks," Kai said to Mia, rubbing his wrist. Then, to Ezra, quieter, "So, what now?" Ezra's heart pounded. The crowd was still watching, but for the first time, he didn't care. "Wanna grab coffee? I know a place that opens early." Kai's smile was brighter than the sunrise. "Thought you'd never ask." The coffee shop on Pike Street smelled of roasted beans and fresh pastries, its windows fogged from the early morning chill. Ezra and Kai sat across from each other in a cozy booth, their knees brushing under the table, a silent reminder of the night before. The handcuffs were gone, but the invisible thread tying them together felt stronger than ever. Ezra sipped his latte, stealing glances at Kai over the rim of his cup. The morning light caught Kai's dark hair, giving it a soft sheen, and his easy smile made Ezra's chest ache in a way he wasn't ready to name. They'd left the party at 5 a.m., the city still half asleep, and ended up at this 24-hour diner, a haven for insomniacs and night owls. The barista, a tattooed woman named Jade, had raised an eyebrow at their disheveled party attire but served them with a knowing grin. "So," Kai said, leaning back, his fingers tapping a rhythm on his mug. "Last night was unexpected." Ezra snorted, setting his cup down. "That's one way to put it. I went from designing logos to starring in a viral hashtag. My phone's been buzzing nonstop." He pulled out his phone, showing Kai the flood of notifications, friends, co-workers, even strangers tagging them in photos from the party. The Handcuffed Heartthrobs hashtag had over 10,000 posts now, complete with fan edits and memes. Kai leaned over, his shoulder brushing Ezra's as he scrolled through the posts. "Look at this one," he said, laughing. It was a slow-motion video of them posing dramatically at the party, captioned, "When you get handcuffed to your soulmate." They're really leaning into this BL couple thing. Ezra's face heated. "Yeah, well, they're not entirely wrong about the chemistry." The words slipped out before he could stop them, and he froze, eyes wide. Kai's grin faltered, replaced by a softer, more searching look. "You think we've got chemistry?" Kai's voice was low, teasing, but there was a weight to it, like he was testing the waters. Ezra swallowed, his heart hammering. He wasn't used to this flirting, or whatever this was. Back in Oregon, he'd buried his feelings under layers of denial, dating girls to fit in, never letting himself explore the quiet longing that surfaced when he saw guys like Kai. But here, in this diner, with Kai's eyes locked on his, he felt a spark he couldn't ignore. Maybe, Ezra said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I mean, we didn't exactly hate being stuck together. Kai's laugh was warm, easing the tension. Fair. I've had worse dates. He paused, then added, not that last night was a date. Unless you want it to be. The question hung in the air, bold and vulnerable. Ezra's mind raced. He could brush it off, keep things safe. But something in Kai's gaze opened. Hopeful made him want to take the leap. Let's call it a predate, he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. Gotta see if you can keep up with me outside of handcuffs. Kai's eyes lit up. Challenge accepted. Over the next few days, they texted constantly. Kai sent Ezra links to his favorite indie bands, and Ezra shared sketches he'd done of the Seattle skyline, including one of the rooftop where they'd met. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, from music and art to deeper things. Kai's dreams of playing at the Crocodile, Ezra's fear of being seen for who he really was. Each message felt like a step closer, a bridge between their worlds. But the internet had other plans. The Handcuffed heartthrob's frenzy grew, with local blogs picking up the story. A queer lifestyle site ran an article titled Seattle's Hottest New Couple, Handcuffed and Heartstruck, complete with granny party photos. Ezra's co-workers teased him relentlessly, and his inbox filled with messages from strangers. Some supportive, others invasive. One comment stuck with him: if they're not dating, they're wasting everyone's time. The attention was overwhelming, but it also forced Ezra to confront his feelings. He liked Kai, really liked him, but the public spotlight made every moment feel like a performance. Was this real? Or were they just playing into the narrative everyone else had written? One evening, Kai invited Ezra to an open mic at a Capitol Hill bar. The venue was small, with exposed brick walls and mismatched chairs, packed with a mix of hipsters and artists. Kai took the stage, guitar in hand, his voice raw and soulful as he sang about love and second chances. Ezra sat in the back, sketching Kai's silhouette on a napkin, his heart swelling with every note. When Kai finished, the crowd erupted, and he made a beeline for Ezra, his face flushed with adrenaline. You came, Kai said, breathless, as he slid into the seat beside him. Wouldn't miss it, Ezra replied, showing him the sketch. Kai's eyes softened, and for a moment, the noisy bar faded away. But the moment was shattered when a group of fans approached, phones out, asking for selfies with the handcuffed couple. Ezra tensed, but Kai handled it with grace, deflecting questions about their relationship while keeping his arm around Ezra's shoulder. It felt protective, grounding, but it also reminded Ezra of the world watching them. Later, as they walked through the neon-lit streets, Kai stopped under a street lamp. This whole viral thing gets a lot. Huh? Ezra nodded, shoving his hands in his pockets. I don't know how to do this. Kai. The attention, the assumptions, it's making me question everything. Kai stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. Then let's forget the noise. What do you want? Ezra. Ezra's breath caught. He wanted Kai's laugh, his music, the way he made Ezra feel seen. But admitting it meant stepping into a truth he'd avoided for years. I want this, he said, gesturing between them. But I'm scared. Kai's hand found his, warm and steady. Me too. But we don't have to figure it all out tonight. They stood there, hands clasped, the city humming around them. For the first time, Ezra felt like he could breathe. The Seattle rain was relentless, drumming against the windows of Ezra's tiny Fremont apartment. He and Kai sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by takeout containers and Ezra's sketchbooks, the air thick with the scent of pad thai and possibility. It had been 2 weeks since the open mic, and their connection had deepened. But the weight of the world's expectations loomed larger than ever. Ezra flipped through his latest sketchbook, showing Kai a drawing of the Puget Sound at dusk, the water shimmering with reflected lights. This one's from the night we met, he said, his voice soft. I couldn't stop thinking about the rooftop. Kai leaned closer, his shoulder brushing Ezra's. You're good, man. Like, really good. His fingers traced the edges of the sketch, lingering near Ezra's hand. The touch was electric, and Ezra's pulse quickened. They'd been dancing around this moments of closeness. Stolen glances, but neither had crossed the line into something more. The internet hadn't slowed down. The Handcuffed Heartthrobs hashtag had spawned fan fiction, TikTok edits, and even a local radio segment speculating about their romance. Ezra's inbox was a mix of support and vitriol, with some messages calling them an inspiration and others accusing them of faking it for clout. Kai, used to performing, shrugged off the noise, but Ezra felt it like a weight on his chest. Coming out wasn't just personal anymore. It was a public event. That night, Kai suggested they go to a queer club in Pioneer Square, a place known for its inclusive vibe and killer DJs. Let's just have fun, Kai said, his eyes bright with mischief. No phones. No hashtags, just us. Ezra hesitated. Clubs weren't his scene, and the idea of being recognized made his skin crawl. But Kai's enthusiasm was infectious, and he found himself nodding. Fine. But if we get mobbed, you're buying me coffee for a month. The club, called Neon Haven, was a riot of color and sound. Strobe lights painted the crowd in flashes of pink and blue, and the bass thumped through Ezra's bones. Kai led him to the dance floor, their hands brushing as they moved through the crowd. For the first time in weeks, Ezra felt free, lost in the music and Kai's laughter. They danced, clumsy at first, then in sync, their bodies close, the world shrinking to just them. But the bubble burst when a stranger recognized them. Yo, it's the Handcuffed guys. The guy shouted, pulling out his phone. Soon, a small crowd formed, snapping photos, asking questions. Ezra froze, his heart racing, but Kai squeezed his hand, grounding him. Let's get out of here, Kai whispered, and they slipped through a side exit into an alley, the rain cooling their flushed skin. They leaned against a brick wall, catching their breath, laughter bubbling up despite the chaos. Sorry about that, Kai said, running a hand through his damp hair. I thought we could escape the spotlight for one night. Ezra shook his head, a smile tugging at his lips. It's okay. I'm getting used to it. Sort of. Kai turned to face him, his expression serious. Ezra, I need to know something. This, us, is it just the hype? Or is it real for you? The question hit like a thunderclap. Ezra's throat tightened, memories of his small-town past flashing through his mind, years of hiding, of pretending to be someone he wasn't. But standing here, with Kai's eyes searching his, he felt a courage he hadn't known he had. It's real, he said, his voice steady. I've never felt like this before. Not with anyone. Kai's face broke into a grin, and before Ezra could process it, Kai leaned in, his lips brushing Ezra's in a tentative, rain-soaked kiss. It was soft, electric, and over too soon, but it left Ezra breathless, his world tilting on its axis. They walked back to Ezra's apartment, hands intertwined, the rain a gentle curtain around them. Inside, they curled up on the couch, talking until the early hours. Kai shared stories of his first crush, a boy in high school who never knew how he felt. Ezra admitted he'd never dated a guy, never let himself dream of it until now. The vulnerability was raw, but it felt like freedom. The next morning, Ezra woke to find Kai asleep beside him, one arm draped over his chest. The sight made his heart ache with a tenderness he hadn't known he could feel. But as he checked his phone, his stomach dropped. A new article had dropped. This one from a gossip site, Handcuffed Heartthrobs, Real Love or Social Media Stunt. It included blurry photos from the club, with quotes from sources questioning their authenticity. Ezra's hands shook as he showed Kai, who read it with a frown. This is bullshit, Kai said, tossing the phone aside. They don't get to define us. But the doubt lingered in Ezra's mind. The world's obsession with their story was suffocating, and he wondered if they could ever just be them. As Kai pulled him close, promising they'd figure it out, Ezra wanted to believe him. But the storm was coming, and he wasn't sure they were ready. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of stolen moments and public scrutiny. Ezra and Kai carved out a fragile bubble of their own, meeting for late-night walks along Alki Beach or quiet dinners at hole-in-the-wall taco joints. But the internet's grip on their story tightened, turning every outing into a spectacle. Paparazzimal time bloggers with too much ambition started trailing them, and handcuff heartthrobs hit 1 million posts. Ezra, 24, was unraveling. His graphic design work suffered, his focus splintered by the constant notifications and whispers at the office. His boss, a well-meaning but nosy woman named Carla, kept asking if he was handling the fame okay. Ezra didn't know how to tell her he wasn't. Famush was just a guy falling for another guy, and the world wouldn't let them breathe. Kai, 25, was more resilient, his performer's instinct kicking in. He'd joke about the attention, calling them Seattle's accidental celebrities. But even he was starting to crack. One night, after a blogger cornered them outside a record store, Kai snapped, "We're not your entertainment." The outburst made headlines, and Ezra saw a flicker of guilt in Kai's eyes afterward. They found solace in small rebellions. One rainy afternoon, they ditched their phones and drove to a secluded park in Ravenna, where they sat under a massive cedar tree, sharing a thermos of coffee. Kai strummed his guitar, humming a melody he'd written for Ezra's soft, yearning tune that made Ezra's heart ache. "This one's for you," Kai said, his voice barely audible over the rain. No hashtags, no cameras, just us. Ezra leaned against him, the damp earth grounding them. "I wish we could stay here forever," he murmured. No one watching, no one judging. Kai's fingers stilled on the strings. "We could, you know, run away, start over somewhere quiet." It was a fantasy, but it planted a seed. Ezra started imagining a life beyond Seattle's spotlight, a place where they could be themselves. Not the hottest BL couple, but the idea felt like betraying the community that had embraced them. Fan letters poured in, stories from queer kids who saw their courage as a beacon. One, from a 16-year-old in Idaho. "Read, seeing you two makes me believe I can be myself someday." Ezra carried that letter in his wallet, a reminder of the stakes. The breaking point came at a queer arts festival in Ballard. Kai was performing, and Ezra was in the crowd, sketching the stage. The set was electric, Kai's voice weaving through the crowd like a spell. But midway through, a heckler shouted, "You're just milking the handcuff thing." The crowd gasped, and Kai faltered, his fingers slipping on the strings. Ezra's heart sank as he saw the hurt flash across Kai's face. After the set, Kai found Ezra backstage, his eyes stormy. "I'm done with this," he said, his voice tight. "I can't keep performing for people who think we're a gimmick." Ezra grabbed his hand, desperate to anchor him. "We're not a gimmick. What we have, it's real. Isn't it?" Kai's expression softened, but the doubt lingered. "I know it's real, but I don't know how to keep it safe from all this." That night, they fought for the first time. Back at Ezra's apartment, Kai paced, his frustration spilling over. "Maybe we rushed into this. Maybe the handcuffs, the high P, it's all clouding what we actually are." Ezra's chest tightened, fear clawing at him. "You think we're a mistake?" "No." Kai stopped, running a hand through his hair. I don't want to lose you because of some stupid narrative we didn't ask for." The words hung heavy. Ezra wanted to fight, to say they could overcome it. But the exhaustion was bone deep. They fell asleep on opposite sides of the bed, the space between them a chasm. The next morning, Ezra woke to an email from a local TV station requesting an interview. They wanted the handcuffed couple to share their love story on air. Ezra stared at the screen, his stomach churning. He showed it to Kai. who read it in silence. Then said, "What if we say no? What if we just stop? Stop." Ezra's voice cracked. "Stop us. Or stop them." Kai met his gaze. His eyes raw. "I don't know. I just want us to be enough. Without the world's permission." They spent the day apart. Ezra at his studio. Kai at his mom's diner in Tacoma. Ezra sketched furiously, pouring his confusion into jagged lines and shadowed faces. Kai's words echoed, "I want us to be enough." But could they be? When every step felt like a performance. By evening, Ezra made a decision. He drove to Tacoma, pulling up outside the diner just as Kai was locking up. The neon sign buzzed, casting a warm glow over Kai's tired face. "We need to talk," Ezra said, stepping out into the rain. Kai nodded, his expression guarded. "Yeah, we do." The rain fell in sheets, blurring the neon glow of the diner's sign as Ezra stood before Kai, his heart pounding like a drum. "I don't want to lose this," he said, his voice raw, cutting through the storm. "Not because of some bloggers or hashtags. I want us the real us." Kai's eyes searched his, rain dripping from his hair. "Ezra, I want that too. But it's hard when it feels like the whole world's watching." Ezra stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking. "Then let's make them see the truth. Not the handcuffed couple. Not the viral story, just two guys figuring it out together." He reached for Kai's hand, his fingers trembling but sure. "I'm falling for you, Kai. And I'm done hiding." Kai's breath hitched, and for a moment, the world was just them two young men, 24 and 25, standing in the rain, their hearts laid bare. Kai pulled Ezra into a kiss, fierce and unapologetic, the kind that drowned out the noise of the world. When they parted, Kai's smile was brighter than the diner's neon. "Okay," he said, "let's do this. For real." They decided to face the storm together. The TV interview was their chance not to play into the narrative, but to rewrite it. They met the producer at a studio in downtown Seattle, a sleek space with two bright lights and a nervous intern clutching a clipboard. The host, a charismatic woman named Lena, greeted them warmly, but Ezra sensed the hunger for a soundbite. He squeezed Kai's hand. A silent promise, "We've got this." On air, Lena leaned forward, her smile practiced. "So, Ezra, Kai, the world's obsessed with your story. Handcuffed at a party. Now the internet's favorite couple. What's the real deal?" Ezra took a breath, his voice steady despite the cameras. "The real deal is we didn't plan this. We were strangers, thrown together by a party game. But what happened after that's ours. Not the hashtags. Not the photos. Just us, figuring out what it means to care about someone." Kai nodded, his hand still in Ezra's. "We're not here to be your BL couple fantasy. We're two people who found something real, and we're trying to hold on to it. That's all." Lena's smile faltered, but she recovered, pivoting to lighter questions. The interview aired that night, and the response was mixed. Some fans cheered their honesty. Others grumbled about ruining the fantasy. But for Ezra and Kai, it was a weight lifted. They'd drawn a line. Their love wasn't for consumption. The next few months were quieter. They moved to a small apartment in Queen Anne, a cozy space filled with Ezra's sketches and Kai's guitar. The internet moved on to new obsessions, and the handcuffed heartthrob's frenzy faded. But their story didn't. They built a life together. Messy and real late-night jam sessions, arguments over dishes, and moments of joy so pure they felt like magic. One evening, as spring bloomed over Seattle, they returned to the rooftop where it all began. Mia had invited them to another party, promising no handcuffs this time. The city sparkled below, and Ezra pulled Kai close, their fingers entwined. "You ever think about how one night changed everything?" he asked. Kai grinned, his eyes reflecting the lights. "All the time. Best accident ever." They danced under the stars, No cameras. No hashtags, just two hearts beating in sync. The world had tried to define them, but they'd written their own story. One of courage, love, and the beauty of being seen for who they truly were. And somewhere, in a small Idaho town, a 16-year-old kid watched their interview on repeat, dreaming of a day when they, too, could love without fear.